My name is Brianna. I'm 29 years old, and this is how I took revenge on the family who insulted me in front of everyone, and on the man who walked out when I needed him most. It happened at my baby shower, the one I hadn't even wanted. But my husband's family insisted on throwing pastel streamers, sugary cupcakes, and women I barely knew pretending to adore me. I smiled for the photos, said thank you too many times, and clutched my belly like a shield. Then came the moment I'll never forget. My mother-in-law raised her glass and said loudly, "Let's just hope the baby doesn't have your nose." A few chuckles followed. Too fast to be nerves. Then her daughter added, "Or her thighs. Lord, give that baby a chance." Laughter erupted. Real, unfiltered laughter. I stood there, 7 months pregnant, my body swollen with life, and my heart breaking wide open. I looked to my husband, Mark, hoping, begging, for him to step in, to shut it down, to defend me. But he didn't. He stared at the floor, face tight, jaw clenched. Then, without a word, he walked away. Just walked out. I stayed for another 30 minutes, pretending, smiling in photos, opening diapers and bottles like they were diamonds. But I was numb that night, as I sat on the edge of our bed, surrounded by tissue paper and gifts I didn't want. My voice cracked in my own head. That was the day I realized I was alone. I grew up in a modest, working-class home with parents who didn't have much but gave everything. My dad worked construction. My mom was a school bus driver. We didn't take fancy vacations or have name-brand clothes, but our home was full of love, respect, and honesty. That's what I carried with me into adulthood. A belief that love was enough. That if you were kind and loyal, the world would meet you halfway. I met Drew in college. He was the kind of guy people instantly noticed. Charismatic, ambitious, a finance major with a 5-year plan and a car paid for by his parents. I was studying social work, waiting tables at night, juggling student loans and dreams that didn't come with dollar signs. But he liked that about me. Or so he said. Said I was real. That I grounded him to we fell fast. By senior year, we were living together in a tiny off-campus apartment, sharing grocery lists and late-night plans about the future. I met his family right before graduation, and the chill was immediate. His mother smiled too hard. His sister asked if I was, like, the first person in my family to go to college. They called me sweet with that high-pitched, patronizing tone that said they thought I was beneath him. When I got a job at a nonprofit after school, working with foster kids, his dad laughed and said, "Well, at least you'll have stories to tell at dinner parties." Drew said they didn't mean it. He always said that. Said I shouldn't take it personally, that I was overreacting. But I never saw him correct them. Not once. Then we started trying for a baby. Quietly, carefully. The first miscarriage was a gut punch. The second almost broke me. I questioned everything. My body, my worth, my marriage. But Drew held me, whispered promises, said we'd keep going. And somehow, miraculously, we conceived again. This pregnancy became everything to me. Every flutter, every heartbeat on the monitor, every stretch mark. All of it was a victory. I wanted to celebrate it. I needed to believe that maybe, finally, things were changing, so I planned the baby shower myself. I booked the venue, designed the invites, picked a neutral theme so no one could complain it was too much. I baked half the desserts by hand. I told myself that if I showed them I was worthy, if I made it beautiful enough, polite enough, palatable enough, They might finally see me as family. But they didn't. They saw me as a mistake. The baby shower felt more like a trap than a celebration. From the moment I walked in, I sensed it. The glances, the whispers, the tight smiles. The room was beautiful, sure, perfectly decorated in ivory and sage green, the colors I'd picked. But the energy, cold. Every compliment came with an edge. Every gift on the table was wrapped in glittery paper with cards that said from the family. No names, no personal notes. It was as if I didn't exist, just the baby they all hoped would come out looking nothing like me. I heard Drew's aunt whisper to his sister, "Let's just pray the family genes dominate," followed by a snort of laughter. I gripped the chair I was sitting in, my hand instinctively going to my belly. Jasmine, my best friend since high school, came to sit beside me and tried to lift the mood. "Hey, at least the cupcakes are good," she whispered with a wink. But her smile faltered when she glanced toward Drew. He was in the corner with his cousin, drinking, laughing. Not once had he come to check on me. Not once had he defended me, or even looked like he was part of this celebration. Then came the final blow. Drew's mother raised her glass and said, loud enough for the whole room to hear, "Here's hoping the baby doesn't have her nose." Laughter followed. Actual, cruel laughter, like I was the punchline of a bad family sitcom. I turned instinctively to Drew, my partner, the father of this child. Surely, this would be the moment he'd stand up for me. But he laughed. He actually laughed. A smirk, maybe even a chuckle, before he downed the rest of his drink and walked out. Just left. No words, no glance back. I felt the room tilt. My face was frozen in a smile I couldn't keep holding. I excused myself, shuffled to the bathroom, and locked the door before the tears started falling. Hot, silent, endless. A few minutes later, Jasmine knocked gently. "Bree, you don't have to keep pretending this is okay." Her voice cracked. Something in me, she was right. I'd been pretending that their jabs were just jokes. That Drew was just uncomfortable, not complicit. That if I tried hard enough, they'd love me. But I saw it now. This wasn't awkwardness. It was cruelty. And Drew, he wasn't neutral. He was one of them. That realization hit harder than any insult. I wasn't just disrespected. I was abandoned, emotionally, spiritually, completely, by the one person who was supposed to protect me. I didn't want their approval anymore. I didn't want their validation or their cold congratulations. I wanted justice. Drew didn't come home until after midnight. I was sitting in the nursery, folding tiny onesies I couldn't even look at anymore without my stomach turning. When the door finally creaked open, I waited. Maybe he'd come in with some remorse. A bouquet of gas station flowers, even a half-hearted apology. Instead, he tossed his keys on the counter, stretched, and said, "You're still up." Like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just been humiliated in front of 30 people while carrying his child. When I didn't answer, he shrugged and walked past me. "You've gotta stop being so sensitive, Bree. You ruined a perfectly good day." That's when it began. The unraveling. The gaslighting. Suddenly, I was the problem. The reason the baby shower felt off. The reason his mom couldn't just be herself. The reason he had to step away to breathe. I stopped fighting. Out loud. At least, inside. I was paying attention. He started spending more time with his family again. Their weekly dinners, their charity events, their wine and laughs without me. When I asked why I wasn't invited, he'd brush it off. It's nothing formal. Or, you'd be uncomfortable anyway. And maybe I would have kept believing it, or at least pretending to. Until one night, he left his phone on speaker. While I passed by the living room, I froze in the hallway when I heard his sister's voice say, "So, did she cry?" Drew laughed. "Oh yeah, full meltdown. Jasmine had to babysit her. Classic Brie." My ears burned. My chest caved in. I went back to the nursery, picked up the same onesie, and folded it again. Slower this time. That night, I started a journal. Every insult, every joke, every time he dismissed me or made me feel invisible. I kept receipts, screenshots, copied over text messages and bank transfers. I even started recording therapy sessions, not just for legal reasons, but to hear myself clearly. Jasmine was my lifeline. "Document everything," she whispered. "Don't react. Prepare." So I did. I opened a private savings account under my maiden name. I rerouted my direct deposit. I registered my name independently on the baby's hospital paperwork. I called an apartment complex 2 blocks from the Women's Health Center and got on the wait list. I kept it all quiet. I smiled when I had to. I made dinner. I played the part. But every time he joked that I was emotional or too tired to think straight, I mentally updated my exit plan. Every time he told someone I wasn't working right now like I was a burden, I moved another document into a password-protected folder on my laptop. And through it all, I mourned. I mourned the man I thought I'd married. The one who used to rub my feet after long shifts. Who'd cry watching animal rescue videos. Who once told me, "You're the strongest person I've ever met." But that man didn't disappear. He never existed. He didn't change. I wrote one night, tears staining the page. I just stopped making excuses. At her 35-week checkup, Brianna sat alone in the cold, sterile room while the doctor furrowed her brow over the ultrasound. "You may need to deliver early," the doctor said gently. "There's some concern about your blood pressure and fluid levels. We'll monitor closely, but just be prepared." Brianna nodded, her hands trembling slightly on her belly. When she got home and told Drew, he barely looked up from his phone. "You're fine. They always say that. Just rest." He didn't ask for details. Didn't offer to come to the next appointment. A week later, in the middle of the night, her back seized with pain, waves of nausea, then a gush of fluid. She was in early labor. She called Drew first, straight to voicemail. Called again. Nothing. Her fingers fumbled to call Jasmine, who answered on the first ring and was at her door in 10 minutes, keys in hand. Voice calm but urgent. "You're okay. I've got you." Hours blurred into sterile light, beeping machines, and masked nurses. The baby was in distress. They needed to do an emergency C-section. Jasmine held her hand all the way into the operating room. Her son was born just before dawn, tiny, with a fierce cry and a full head of curls. When they laid him on her chest, Brianna broke down, weeping silently as she kissed his forehead. Drew showed up 12 hours later, holding a smoothie and acting as if he'd just popped by after brunch. Traffic was insane, he said with a yawn, like he'd missed a meeting, not his son's birth. Brianna didn't say a word. She just stared at him, then back at her baby, whose chest rose and fell gently against hers. When the nurse came in with the paperwork for the birth certificate, she turned without hesitation. "His name is Elijah James. My last name only." Drew's eyes widened. "What? No, we agreed, no." She interrupted, her voice calm. You assumed. I decided. He stepped closer, ready to argue. But she reached to her side and pulled out an envelope from her bag, neatly labeled, already unsealed. Custody petition. Separation papers. You can have your lawyer review them. The color drained from his face. Bree, he started. She turned her head toward the nurse. Can you ask him to leave now? The nurse nodded and gently stepped between them, leading him toward the door. As it clicked shut, Brianna exhaled for the first time in months. Her son stirred on her chest. She kissed his forehead again and whispered, "It's just us now, baby. And we're going to be just fine." Brianna moves into her own apartment with baby Elijah tucked against her chest. The weight of fear slowly replaced by the lightness of freedom. She paints the walls soft sage and fills the shelves with books and baby toys, stringing twinkle lights above the crib. It's not fancy, but it's theirs. Every night, she rocks Elijah to sleep in a room filled with laughter, lullabies, and a peace she never knew she needed. The divorce drags, bitter, slow, and sharp around the edges. Drew's family tries to rewrite the story, painting her as emotional, ungrateful, even unstable. But Brianna arrives in court with her quiet arsenal. The journal of insults, screenshots of gaslighting texts, letters from her therapist, and financial statements proving her independence. When it's over, the judge grants her full physical custody. Drew is given supervised visitation. Child support is ordered. Alimony is on the table. But Brianna shakes her head. I don't want anything from him, she tells the court. Just peace. And peace is exactly what she builds. One afternoon, while rocking Elijah in her lap, she writes a long post about what it means to choose yourself, even when it hurts, even when you're scared. She writes about the moment she chose strength over survival. She posts a photo of Elijah in a soft cotton onesie, smiling, and hits publish. It goes viral. Women comment with their own stories, tales of dismissive in-laws, absentee partners, and the quiet power it takes to leave. Brianna starts a support group online. What began as a wound becomes a lighthouse. She starts smiling again. The kind of smile that reaches her eyes. The kind that isn't pretending. Months later, she's invited to a family birthday. She goes, not to prove anything, but because she wants Elijah to feel included. Drew shows up, uninvited, arrogant as ever, clearly expecting her to shrink. But Brianna greets him with a smile and says, loud enough for everyone to hear, because of what you did, I became everything I needed to be. And then she turns, lifts Elijah into her arms, and walks away, radiant, whole, and finally free. Brianna walks Elijah to preschool on a crisp morning, his tiny hand wrapped around her fingers, his backpack bouncing with each step. As they reach the gate, he looks up at her with those same deep, expressive eyes and says, "You're so pretty, Mommy." Her heart clenches, not from pain, but from healing. She kneels, pulls him into a hug, and whispers, "You're the most beautiful thing I've ever made." As he runs off toward the classroom, his curls catching the light, Brianna stands for a moment, watching. Her voice comes in soft. They hoped my son wouldn't look like me, but I hope he does, because I want him to see strength when he looks. In the mirror, she glances down at her wrist, where a fresh tattoo peeks out beneath her sleeve. One word in fine script. Worthy. A promise. A reminder. Final line. I didn't just take revenge.